Welcome back, everyone. We're diving into a field today that I think a lot of people probably don't think about a whole lot in their day-to-day lives, but it's actually incredibly important, especially as we think about things like, climate change, urbanization, uh,
Yeah.
all the trends that are happening in the world right now.
Yeah, definitely. And it's more dynamic than people might think.
Exactly.
It's fire prevention and protection engineering.
hmm
We've got two really cool guides we're looking at today, a career guide and an interview guide for this kind of job.
Oh, awesome. So we're going to kind of figure out, like, if you were interested in this as a career path, what does it take to excel in it?
Yeah.
And maybe even figure out if it's something that we might consider.
Yeah, exactly. And even if you're not thinking about this particular career path, the stuff we're going to uncover about problem solving and risk assessment and how important it is to stay updated in any field, that's going to be applicable to pretty much everyone.
It's going to be applicable to pretty much everyone. I love that. Okay, so let's jump into this. The first thing that I saw in this career guide was like what these engineers actually do. And, I think we all kind of have an image in our minds about like firefighters running into burning buildings. But these guys are the ones who are like, how do we even prevent that from happening in the first place?
Yeah, it's really about studying, designing, and developing solutions to prevent fires.
Right. And it's way more than just buildings, right?
Absolutely.
It's protecting people, natural areas, urban landscapes, even like the clothes that we wear.
Right. Proposing those suitable materials for different applications
Yeah.
and making sure those materials actually do what we need them to
Well,
do.
so like they have to have such a deep understanding of how different materials react to fire.
Definitely.
And then of course there's like the detection and suppression systems,
Right.
which are like so important, but you never think about until there's a problem. So where do these folks, like, where's their office?
Well, that's actually one of the interesting things about this career path. It's not all desks and blueprints.
Yeah, okay.
You'll definitely find them in offices and labs, yeah.
Yeah.
But they also have to do on-site work. They might have to inspect a building that's under construction, assess the fire risks in a manufacturing plant, things like that.
Okay, so they do get out there. They have to put on like the
Yeah, the hard hat.
the hard hat, the steel-toed boots, like all that good stuff.
Exactly. Exactly. And it's not just a solo mission either. They're collaborating. They're working with architects. They're working with manufacturers and a whole bunch of other professionals
Yeah, like a whole team.
to make sure that that fire safety is baked into every design.
And so is this a growing field? Like if somebody was looking at this as a career path, are there going to be jobs in the future?
Yeah, that's actually one of the really promising things about this field. The employment outlook is really good
Hmm.
because there's a growing demand for fire prevention and protection across all sorts of industries.
Okay, that makes sense.
And, with technology changing all the time, this field is super dynamic.
Yeah.
New materials, new detection systems. There's always something new to learn and apply.
So it's not like you're going to get bored in this job.
No, definitely not. There's always a new challenge around the corner. And they're increasingly focusing on sustainability too, which is really cool.
Oh, I love that.
Yeah, like integrating fire prevention into the design phase, so you're not just adding it on as an afterthought.
So like if we're designing a skyscraper,
Exactly.
you're thinking about this right from the beginning. Like,
From the ground up.
yeah, from the ground up. I love that.
Yeah.
Okay, so it's a growing field. There's tons of, cool stuff to learn. But what does it actually take to be a fire prevention and protection engineer?
Right, right. So the guide talks about these core abilities. These are like the key things you need to succeed.
Okay, I like that. Like, I'm envisioning somebody who's probably pretty good at, like, math and science. But are there other things that are maybe not as obvious?
Yeah, for sure. So the top 5 that they highlight are critical thinking, active listening, complex problem solving, judgment and decision making, and then operations analysis.
So you have to be able to break down a really complex problem
Exactly.
and then, like, figure out the best way to tackle it.
Exactly. Like imagine you're designing a fire suppression system for, say, a historical building with all these unique architectural features.
Ooh, yeah.
You've got to balance preservation with safety. Right?
Yeah, so it's not just about, like, knowing the codes and the regulations.
Yeah.
You have to actually, like, apply that knowledge in a really creative and thoughtful way.
Absolutely. And you've got to be able to communicate those ideas effectively
Yeah.
to the other people on the team.
So it's not just about being, like, a tech genius. It's about being able to actually work with people.
Totally, yeah. And one thing that really struck me was that this isn't a learn it once and you're done kind of field.
Oh, interesting.
You've got to constantly stay updated on the latest technologies and best practices.
Because, like, think about it. You've just mastered the latest fire suppression technology, and then suddenly there's a new, even more effective system that comes out.
Right,
So
exactly.
you're always learning,
Always learning.
always, like, pushing the boundaries of what's possible. Wow.
Exactly.
But what does that look like, though, like, in practice? Is it just reading textbooks all day long?
Not quite. It's much more dynamic than that. The guide emphasizes attending workshops, subscribing to industry journals, engaging in online forums.
So, like, really being plugged in?
Yeah, plugged into the latest advancements and best practices.
That's so cool. So it's not just about, like, sitting in a classroom. It's about being part of this, like, active community of professionals who are all pushing each other to be better.
Absolutely. It's a really collaborative and dynamic field.
Okay, so we've established that this field is super dynamic. You're constantly learning, and you have to be able to think critically, solve complex problems. But what does that actually look like throughout your career? Like, you start out as an entry-level engineer, and then where do you go from there?
That's a great question. Let's break down those career stages. So we start with the entry level. What's it like to be brand new in this field?
Yeah, like you just graduated, you got your degree, you're ready to go. What are you actually doing on a day-to-day basis?
Well, at that entry level, you're probably going to be assisting those senior engineers. You'll be doing a lot of research. You'll be diving deep into different materials and technologies. You'll be collaborating on brainstorming sessions, really getting those fundamentals down pat.
Okay, so it's a lot of learning, but also like getting to apply those core abilities.
Exactly. Exactly. It's a great time to start working towards those industry certifications too. Things like becoming a certified fire protection specialist, that kind of thing.
Okay, so you're building your knowledge base, you're gaining experience, and then you move up to that junior fire prevention and protection engineer level. What are some of the new challenges that come with that?
Okay, so now you're starting to take on more independent tasks. You
Wow.
might be conducting fire hazard analyses. You might be doing risk assessments for different environments.
Oh, interesting. So, like, assessing the fire risks of a skyscraper versus a historical building.
Exactly. Yeah. Each one has its own unique challenges.
That's fascinating.
You're using your judgment. You're making decisions that could have a huge impact on people's safety.
That's a lot of responsibility.
It is, yeah. But it's also super rewarding.
So you're not just following instructions anymore, you're actually using your brain.
Yeah, you're thinking critically, you're problem solving.
I like that. So what else do junior engineers do?
Well, they're also starting to get involved in designing those fire protection systems. So those suppression systems, detection systems, all that good stuff.
Okay, so they're putting their knowledge into practice, like actually creating something.
Exactly, yeah. And they're working closely with the architects, the contractors, making sure that those building designs actually meet all the fire safety regulations.
Oh, so there's a lot of collaboration at this stage.
Tons of collaboration, yeah. Communication skills are super important.
Because you're not just working in a silo anymore, you're part of a team.
Right. And as you gain more experience, you move up to the mid-level engineer.
Okay, so you've put in the time, you've honed your skills, you're a mid-level engineer. What's different now?
Well, now you're moving beyond those individual tasks, and you're starting to lead entire projects. So you're not just designing a system, you're optimizing it for different environments.
Oh, so it's like instead of just playing an instrument in the orchestra, you're conducting the whole symphony.
Exactly, yeah. You're making sure all the parts work together.
Wow.
You're taking charge of those fire safety audits and inspections.
Oh, that sounds intense.
It can be, yeah. It's like being a detective, but you're looking for fire hazards.
That's pretty cool, though, knowing that you're playing such a key role in protecting people and property.
Definitely, yeah. It comes with a real sense of accomplishment.
So at this stage, you might also be developing training programs, right?
Yeah, exactly. Sharing your knowledge and expertise with others.
It's amazing to think about the impact you can have at this level. You're designing the systems, you're implementing them, you're teaching other people how to be safe.
It's really cool, yeah.
But I'm curious, what's the pinnacle of this career path? Like, what does it mean to be a senior fire prevention and protection engineer?
All right, so at the senior level, you're a true leader in the field. You're not just working on individual projects, you're developing and implementing strategies and policies. For entire organizations, like you're shaping the future of fire prevention and protection.
Wow, that's huge.
It is, yeah. It's thinking about the big picture. You're coming up with those innovative ways to protect people and property from fire.
So you're like the expert that everyone goes to for advice.
Yeah, exactly. Senior engineers provide guidance. They consult on fire prevention measures. They lead research and development initiatives. They mentor the next generation of engineering.
So it's a blend of technical expertise, leadership, and mentorship.
Yeah, it's a multifaceted role for sure.
It sounds like a pretty amazing journey from starting out as an entry-level assistant to becoming a leader in the field.
It is, yeah. And throughout that journey, there's constant learning, problem solving, and collaboration.
And speaking of problem solving, let's shift gears a bit and talk about those interview questions. We mentioned them earlier, and I'm really intrigued by the one about incorporating sustainability
Yeah, that's a good one.
into fire prevention and protection designs because it's such a relevant topic these days, and it shows that this field is evolving to address those contemporary challenges.
Exactly. It gets to the heart of how these engineers are thinking about the big picture. It's not just about putting out fires, it's about designing systems that are sustainable and environmentally responsible.
Right, so what kind of answers would impress an interviewer with that question?
Well, I'd be looking for someone who can go beyond those general statements and give specific examples. Maybe they talk about using sustainable materials or designing systems that minimize water usage and fire suppression. It's about showing that you understand the issue and you're committed to finding innovative solutions.
That makes total sense.
It's not just about knowing the technical stuff, it's about applying it in a way that benefits both people and the planet.
Yeah, I like that. Okay, so another question that stood out to me was the one about handling conflicts with other professionals on a project. Because in a field like this, where there's so much at stake, being able to navigate those conflicts effectively is crucial.
Absolutely. You're working with architects, contractors, building owners, all sorts of stakeholders. There are bound to be disagreements along the way.
So how do you handle that?
The key is to approach those conflicts with a cool head, a collaborative spirit, and a clear focus on safety. It's not about winning an argument. It's about finding the best solution.
Even if it means compromising or adjusting your own ideas.
Exactly. And that's where those core abilities like active listening and communication come in.
You need to be able to hear other perspectives, understand their concerns, and articulate your own ideas.
In a way that fosters collaboration rather than conflict.
Wow, this conversation has really opened my eyes to the complexity of this field. It's not just about putting out fires, it's about designing safe and sustainable environments, thinking critically, working collaboratively, and being a lifelong learner.
You got it. And while we've been focused on this specific career path, the insights we've uncovered are valuable for anyone in any field.
You're absolutely right. But before we wrap up, I want to touch on something that we haven't really talked about yet. We've talked a lot about buildings and urban environments, but what about wildfires? We're seeing more and more of them, and they're becoming increasingly destructive. How can a fire prevention and protection engineer contribute to addressing that challenge?
Yeah, that's a really important point. We often think of these engineers working in cities, in those built environments.
Yeah.
But their skills and knowledge can absolutely be applied to mitigating wildfire risks.
Okay, so how does that work? Like, what could a fire prevention and protection engineer actually do to help protect, forests and grasslands from wildfires?
Well, a lot of the principles are the same, right? You're still dealing with combustible materials, you've got ignition sources to worry about, and you're trying to prevent the spread of fire. It's just on a much larger scale.
Okay, that makes sense. So those core abilities that we talked about, like critical thinking, problem solving, risk assessment, those are all relevant in a wildfire context as well.
Absolutely. For instance, a fire prevention and protection engineer might be involved in assessing the wildfire risk of a particular area. They would consider things like the types of vegetation, the topography, the weather patterns, even human activity.
Oh, wow. So they're like creating a fire hazard analysis, but for like a whole forest.
Exactly. And based on that analysis, they can recommend strategies to reduce the risk of wildfires. Things like creating defensible spaces around homes and communities, clearing out brush and stuff, implementing controlled burns to reduce fuel loads,
Oh, that's interesting.
or even developing evacuation plans so people know what to do if a fire breaks out.
So they're not just reacting to wildfires, they're actually trying to prevent them from happening in the first place.
Right. It's all about being proactive.
Yeah.
And then, of course, if a wildfire does break out, their expertise in fire behavior and suppression systems would be incredibly valuable in helping to contain and extinguish the blaze.
Wow, I never really thought about it that way. It's amazing how versatile these engineers are. They can protect buildings in a city one day and then help save a forest the next.
Yeah, it's a really dynamic and impactful profession. And as we think about the future, with climate change and the increasing risk of natural disasters, I think we're going to see fire prevention and protection engineers playing an even bigger role.
Absolutely. Well, I think we've covered a lot of ground today. We've gone from like the basics of what these engineers do to the skills and knowledge they need, all the way to like imagining what a career in this field might actually look like.
Yeah, we've really gotten a good sense of the challenges and rewards of this profession.
And I think, even if somebody listening isn't interested in becoming a fire prevention and protection engineer, the stuff we've talked about today, like problem solving, continuous learning, risk assessment, that's all valuable no matter what field you're in.
Absolutely. These are skills that everyone can benefit from.
So if something we talked about today sparked your interest, definitely go and explore it further. There's a whole world of possibilities out there. But for now, we're going to wrap up this deep dive. Thank you so much for joining us, and we'll see you next time for another fascinating exploration into the world of work.